During my last lecture on the last king of Granada, a detail, noted by several participants, shook my confidence in a fact I had taken for granted. What if it wasn't Boabdil who died in Tlemcen? What if the man buried in the royal enclosure at Sidi Ibrahim was in fact his uncle of the same name, Sultan Muhammad III, better known as Zaghal, the Victorious? At first glance, this hypothesis turns the whole story on its head, but in reality, it is not new. As early as 1876, Charles Brosselard mentioned it in his thesis. He set it out, analyzed it, then rejected it. So a question arises: why? Why was this hypothesis, though well known, dismissed? And above all, why did the majority of historians follow it, almost without question? To understand this, it is not enough to simply repeat the accounts. We must investigate, return to the sources, examine the traces left by scholars of the late 19th century. For everything rests on a single stone. A stone worn by time, but whose interpretation has shaped a history. I therefore invite you to join me on a genuine investigation, an investigation at the crossroads of history, archives, and doubt. The first step is straightforward: to gather the sources for this contested thesis. I've compiled around 40 references, forming a database. The findings are striking. At the end of the 19th century, several authors supported Brosselard's thesis. But at the start of the 20th century, the trend reversed. The majority contested it. A clear shift. From that point on, one question becomes inevitable. Why? To answer it, we must return to the starting point. To follow in Brosselard's footsteps, at the precise moment when he published his memoir in 1876 in the journal Asiatique. On 31st March 1876, his work was presented to the Académie des Inscriptions et Belles-Lettres by the Orientalist Charles de Fréméry, who highlighted its highly intriguing nature. A few months later, on 6th October, Brosselard officially submitted his thesis to the 1877 National Antiquities Competition. On 15th May 1876, Charbonneau, a leading Arabist, published an article endorsing his interpretation. At that time, such support lent considerable weight to his thesis. On 5th of January 1877, the competition committee was formed. It was chaired by Félix Ravissant-Molien. Gathered around him was an exceptional intellectual elite: Adrien de Longperrier, curator of antiquities at the Louvre; Léopold Delisle, historian and chief librarian; Robert de Lasteyrie, specialist in medieval architecture; Alfred Maury, Director General of the National Archives; Félicien de Saulcy, specialist in numismatics and Oriental antiquities; Barthélemy Oriot, historian of philosophy and director of the Imprimerie Nationale; Jules Desnoyers, geologist and historian; Eugène de Rosière, jurist and medievalist. In other words, the cream of French scholarship of the time. That year, 29 works were submitted to the competition. On 27 July 1877, the verdict was delivered. Brosselard's thesis was awarded the prize, silver medal. His thesis was validated, institutionally validated. At that moment, it became an academic truth. But the story does not end there. In August 1877, Spanish scholars responded. Francisco Fernández González challenged the interpretation of the epitaph. Drawing on the archives of the Royal Academy of History and on al-Makari, he put forward a different interpretation. The stone was not that of Boabdil, but that of his uncle, Zaghal. Let us hear al-Makkari's account.
فالمخطوط نتاعي بعنوان نفح الطيب من غصن الأندلس الرطيب ذكرت باللي عهد بوعبديل كان موسوم بالتراجع النهائي لسيادة الإسلام في الأندلس، وبعد سقوط المملكة نتاعه هجر لفاس مع كل أفراد عائلته، وفيها بنى قصور على طراز أندلسي حوستها بنفسي. وتوفى بوعبديل عام 940 هجرية، ودفنوه في الزاوية لي عند باب الشريعة اللي عيطولها اليوم باب محروق.
In December 1877, during the public session, the president of the Académie, Félix Ravesson-Molien, praised the merits of Brosselard's work, saying,
Sauf la mémoire de Charles Brosselard, qui figure parmi les meilleurs consacrés aux possessions africaines de la France. Messieurs, les travaux de Brosselard à Tlemcen sont d'une valeur inestimable.
By 1878, doubts were already beginning to surface. Eugène de Rosières noted that the identification remained uncertain due to a gap in the marble. Then came the turning point. In April 1881, Adrien de Lemperrier, the very man who had been involved in Brosselard's consecration, published a decisive study. He examined the stone firsthand. For in the meantime, the epitaph had been transported to Paris for the 1878 World's Fair. It was displayed at the entrance to the Algerian pavilion at the Trocadero. A threshold, a passageway, a staging of the last king of Granada. But this exhibition was to change everything. Thanks to paleographic and numismatic analysis, Lemperrier overturns the initial conclusion. The marble does not belong to Boabdil, it belongs to Mohammed XIII, al-Zaghal. On 13th of April 1881, he settles the matter once and for all during the Académie's public session. Brosselard's thesis was invalidated, confirming the Spanish thesis. What is at stake here goes beyond a mere error of attribution. It is a genuine intellectual tragedy. For the man who helped to validate the thesis is also the man who destroys it. In 1877, de Lemperrier crowned Brosselard. In 1881, he contradicted him. In between an official truth, then its collapse. This episode became a textbook case. It serves as a reminder of a fundamental rule.
بوعبديل مات في تلمسان.
عندك الصح.
زغل هو اللي مات في تلمسان.
Before the end of the 19th century, Eguilas Yanguas confirmed de Lemperrier's thesis. Yet some authors of the early 20th century continued to attribute the epitaph to Boabdil. And yet, just as the debate might be settled once and for all, the evidence disappears, the epitaph. In 1893, Godefroy de Montbines noted its absence in Tlemcen. In 1898, William Marseille confirmed,
La pierre est introuvable.
From then on, everything changed. With no object to examine, verification was no longer possible. History froze. If the marble were to reappear today, who would be proven right? And what if it were found, forgotten, in a museum's storerooms? A simple re-examination could reopen the case. A case closed, not out of certainty, but out of absence. In 1992, an international appeal was launched by the National Agency for Archaeology and the Protection of Historic Sites and Monuments of the Algerian Ministry of Communication and Culture to locate the piece. 35 years later, it remains missing. But history, for its part, has already decided otherwise. By correcting the name engraved on the marble, it has not diminished the memory of Tlemcen. It has elevated it. Boabdil was the king of the end. Al-Zaghal was the king of resistance. two sides of the same story. And Tlemcen becomes the guardian of this memory, not that of a fall, but that of dignity.